All right, let's explore one of the most chilling, mind-bending questions you can ask. What if, right now, our sun, the very heart of our solar system, just blinked out of existence? I mean, seriously, right this second. No big explosion, no warning. One moment it's there, the next, it's gone. What would happen to us? Do we freeze instantly? Does the world just fly apart? Well, the answer is actually a lot weirder, and in some ways, way more eerie than you'd probably think. You see, the very first thing that would happen is nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. For this exact amount of time, life would go on completely as normal. The sky would stay blue, you'd still feel its warmth, we would have no idea that our world was already, effectively, doomed. And that number isn't random. You can think of it as a cosmic countdown clock. It's this little grace period the universe gives us before the laws of physics finally delivered the bad news. So let's start with those final, peaceful moments. Why on earth do we get this delay? Well, the answer comes down to the fundamental speed limit of the entire cosmos. It's all about travel time. You see, information itself has a speed limit. And it turns out that both light and the force of gravity travel at that same incredible velocity. The sun is about 150 million kilometers away, so its very last photons of light and its final gravitational pull are still racing towards us long after it's actually gone. So what happens when that 8-minute, 20-second timer hits zero? Two things at the exact same instant. First, the light clicks off and the sky goes pitch black. And second, the gravitational leash holding us in orbit just snaps. Earth immediately stops turning and shoots off in a perfectly straight line, kind of like a stone being let go from a sling. And just like that, we are a rogue planet. Our speed? A mind-boggling 30 kilometers per second. That's over 100,000 kilometers per hour. We're just coasting into the endless night of interstellar space. And believe me, the real trouble is only just beginning. So now that we're a wandering planet, the consequences start to pile up fast. With no more sun, Earth's entire climate engine, the thing that drives everything from a gentle breeze to a Category 5 hurricane, it just grinds to a complete stop. Just try to imagine that moment. Total, permanent darkness falls in an instant. And it's not just the sun we lose. The moon, which only shines because it reflects sunlight, would disappear from our sky too. The only light left would be the faint, distant twinkle of the stars. Now, our planet is actually surprisingly good at holding on to its heat, but not for long. Within just a single day, the average global temperature would plummet to around freezing. In 1 week, we're talking minus 17 Celsius. And after a year, the surface is a horrifying minus 73 degrees. You see, without the sun heating one side of the planet, the temperature differences that drive all our weather just vanish. The winds would die down, the storms would stop, the whole planet would fall into this deep, frozen, and profoundly quiet silence. Our oceans, which are these huge reservoirs of heat, they'd start to freeze from the top down. A thick crust of ice would form, and while that sounds devastating, it would also act like a giant insulating blanket, protecting the deep ocean from the absolute cold of space. And that becomes incredibly important later. So, with the physical world falling apart, what happens to life itself? Well, the answer is swift, and it's brutal. The dominoes just fall one after another with terrifying speed. Photosynthesis, the process that powers pretty much all life on Earth, stops instantly. Plants die. The herbivores that eat the plants starve. And then the carnivores that eat the herbivores, they follow. The entire surface ecosystem just completely unravels in a matter of weeks. Now, here's a small bit of good news, if you want to call it that. There is a lot of oxygen in our atmosphere, so even with all the plants gone, we'd still have breathable air for thousands of years. But with no way to make more, it's a ticking clock. So it all sounds like a total apocalypse, right? A complete wipeout. But even in this frozen, pitch-black world, life, unbelievably, would find a way. So is it really game over for every living thing? Not quite. Because, as it turns out, not all life on this planet gives a hoot about the sun. Deep, deep beneath those frozen oceans, life would just carry on. Down at hydrothermal vents, you've got these cracks in the seafloor blasting out superheated, mineral-rich water. Entire ecosystems thrive down there. They run on chemical energy from the Earth's core, totally independent of sunlight. For those bizarre, resilient creatures, literally nothing would have changed. Okay, so a few microbes and some tube worms might make it, but what about us? Could humanity possibly survive this ultimate catastrophe? Well, on the surface, our civilization would crumble almost instantly. The demand for heating would overload every power grid on the planet. Fuel would turn to sludge, pipes would burst, and eventually, over a very, very long time, the air itself would begin to freeze and fall to the ground like snow.
Our only real hope would be to go deep. Using geothermal and nuclear power, humanity could, in theory, build self-sustaining habitats far underground, insulated by the planet's own crust. We'd have to completely reinvent agriculture, maybe growing fungi or algae in closed systems powered by reactors.
The key takeaway here is that survival is possible, but it's not for the world we know. A tiny remnant of humanity might be able to hang on in these isolated bunkers for generations, living in a world totally alien to our own. You know, thinking about this stuff isn't really meant to be terrifying. It's actually a powerful reminder. It really forces you to appreciate just how unbelievably dependent we are on this giant, stable fusion reactor just hanging out there in our sky. Because the fact that the sun didn't disappear today, the fact that it rose this morning and is going to rise again tomorrow, well, that isn't just routine, it's the daily miracle that makes everything else in our lives even possible.